Come closer.
In this episode, we explore macro lenses for filmmaking. Macro lenses open a whole world of technical possibilities and perspectives that are impossible to achieve with normal lenses.
Closer.
Macro and extreme close-ups can play an important role in cinematic storytelling, in product videography, stop motion work, and in practical effects. Macro shots can inspire concepts and ideas and create art. Legendary filmmakers like Alfred Hitchcock, Danny Boyle, Quentin Tarantino and David Fincher are famous for their love of the extreme close-up. To explore macro techniques, we recreated David Fincher's Mindhunter intro sequence, and of course, we gave it our very own twist. We will take you behind the scenes and show you how the different scenes were set up and lit. This project gave us the opportunity to test the brand new Laowa Sword Cinemacro lenses. The Sword cover full frame and offer a wide range of focal length, starting from 50mm all the way up to 180mm. And this is what makes the Sword so unique in the cine market, because there really hasn't been a set of cine lenses that also offers extremely wide focal lengths, even in the high-end segment. Besides that, the Laowa Sword are very compact, fast and affordable by comparison. Will they deliver in the optical and mechanical department? We will give you test shots and talk about our experience with the Laowa Sword on our production session with the Marmalade and the motion control system Spike. And if macro is just not close enough, we have a quick look at Laowa's Aurogon, a microscope lens system that can give you magnifications up to 50:1. Anything we say can and will be used in your future film projects. Let's start. Extreme close-up shots have a history in cinema reaching all the way back to the silent age and play an important role in visual storytelling ever since. An extreme close-up can have many functions in storytelling. It can display altered states of mind. It can hint connection and the unseen, build tension, symbolize a moment of choice, or a big reveal. Whatever function your extreme close serves, it is an underlining. It is a filmmaker's way to tell the audience, look here, this is important. Therefore, an extreme close-up should be well considered. It should always develop the story. Prolific filmmakers like Alfred Hitchcock use close-up shots extensively, like here in the shower scenes of Psycho that is shot predominantly in close-ups, and even extreme close-ups. Quentin Tarantino is always good for a quick extreme close-up. And Danny Boyle is also famous for using them, like here in Trainspotting. David Fincher loves extreme close-ups. You can find them in his work almost everywhere. We will go into the intros of Seven and Mindhunter later in this episode, as they use close-up with various magnification, making them an ideal example and playground. We chose Mindhunter as an inspiration for our test shooting Macrohunter. The terms extreme close-up and macro shot are not that well defined and blur into each other. Macro is supposed to represent things at a scale larger than life. And as the perceived scale of something has a lot to do with the format it is shot and displayed on, it makes more sense to define macro using the lens itself. Macro lenses are lenses optimized for close-up photography and have a shorter minimal focusing distance compared to normal lenses. Macro lenses have a higher magnification and maintain high image quality during magnification. A magnification of 1:1 means that an object is projected onto the sensor in the same size that it is in real life. For example, the iris of a human is about 12mm in diameter. So, if the iris of a human covers half of the height of a full-frame sensor that has 24mm height, that is a 1:1 magnification. If it fills the image, it is a 2:1 magnification, and so on. Lenses with a magnification ratio of 1:1, also called 1x or higher, are often referred to as true macro lenses, but lenses with less magnification can also be marketed as macro. In a classic narrative context, one rarely enters the macroscopic cosmos at all, and even the psycho close-ups can be done at 1:2 or 0.5x and less magnification. The smaller 35mm format helps with that. Still, a lens being optically optimized for close focus is priceless for many applications. Besides their obvious use for documentaries about tiny wildlife, macro lenses are a requirement for stop-motion animation, VFX shots with models, and product cinematography, also known as tabletop. All these disciplines demand features that are not found in photo macro lenses. While Cine lenses don't necessarily have better optics, they usually have electronic iris and focus with short throws, making them very hard to control, especially over long times like you have it in stop-motion projects. Dragon Frame recommends to use manual lenses for stop-motion projects to avoid flicker. VFX shots and tabletop require long focus throw and precise markings, especially when motion control is used. This will speed up the production and improve the results. And a sturdy Cine housing with PL mounts keeps the lens and camera from disintegrating during high-speed shots on Moco robots. Some normal lenses like our vintage Canon FD 35mm allows to go very close without additional diopters or rings. But for professionals requiring a constant close focus and color rendition throughout a set, a sturdy build, precise markings, PL mount and gearings, photo lenses are generally not a great solution. With these demands from different disciplines, there must be a sizable market for Cine macros. It is surprising that there are so few good options. Ari had a very complete set, reaching from 16mm to 200mm, for eye-watering prices of course. They were for the rental market and Ari stopped to produce them a while ago. While they are still popular in rental houses, they only cover full frame on long focal lengths. IBE's Raptors are also very expensive and lack the wider focal length. The DZO Gnosis were pretty much the only viable option on the market. The Gnosis consists of 4 T2.8 Cine lenses reaching from 24mm to 90mm for $4,600 per focal length. Now, Laowa introduced a new delicious option at a fraction of that cost: the Sword. The Sword macro Cine lenses are a set of 6 full-frame lenses with a wide range of focal length: 50mm, 25mm, 35mm, 60mm, 100mm and 180mm, all offering high magnification and super close focus capabilities. A single focal length is priced at $1,499. There are also set prices. A 4-lens set costs $5,699 and the full 6-lens set can be had for $7,999. The swords have PL mounts and optional EF, E, RF, Z or L mounts are available. All lenses but the 50mm and the 180mm have a maximum aperture of T2.9, still being very compact with a front diameter of 80mm. And that is quite important. Let us expand on why. Laowa made a name for their innovative products, especially their probe lenses that changed the landscape of macro photography and cinematography quite a bit. Besides their unique ability to crawl up to your subject without casting a shadow or filming inside narrow spaces or even underwater, their affordability made these type of shots way more accessible. We used the original probe lens in many of our productions that you can see on this channel. One important advantage of a probe lens is that you can go much closer before the lens itself collides with the subject, something especially important with tabletop and VFX model shooting. Our dry for wet experiment recreating the intro of The Boat shows that quite dramatically. Link is in the corner. But like always, it is a game of trade-offs. The nature of probe lenses requires the objects to be tiny, and the small entrance pupil of such a system will always limit the image quality. This is a good reason to use a conservative macro lens if that is possible in a given shooting scenario. The much larger entrance pupil offers a better optical performance. It also allows you to shoot at lower f-stops, requiring less light and providing a narrow depth of field for background separation, if that aesthetic is desired. As you see, the smaller the macro lens is while maintaining the large entrance pupil, the more versatile it can be used, simply because you can get much closer to features of your subjects or to a table and still maneuver while the lens is angled. This seems to be trivial, but when you work in tabletop or with miniatures, you will be surprised how often you have millimeters of space between the lens and obstacles. Before we go into the fun stuff creating our Macrohunter intro, let us introduce you to the range of the Laowa Sword with some specs, how they look, how close you can go, and what that means to magnification. We have the PL version of the sword, and they are light, being built of aluminum ranging from 640 grams to 957 grams. The sword have dual scales, so you don't have to choose between imperial and metric. The 50mm has a larger caliber of 100mm compared to the other lenses 80mm. All lenses are threaded, so you can use 76mm filters, except for the 50mm that has 95mm threads. Focus and aperture throw differs between the lenses, as do many other key specs. Some of the sword lenses seem to be based on Laowa photography lenses, others differ from their counterparts. Our test environment will use the same reel-to-reel audio recorder Fincher used in the Mindhunter intro, and the hands in the image give you a pretty good idea of the scale of the machine and its parts. For this test, we will shoot the lenses at high t-stops, like you would in a tabletop or VFX environment. The wide shots are around T16 and we open up to around T10 on the close focus to compensate for shadowing. In the Mindhunter recreation, you will see how the lenses perform at lower stops. Instead of minimum focus distance, meaning the minimum distance from the sensor plane to the subject, we are going to talk about the minimum working distance. So, the minimum distance between the front element and the subject. We find that more useful in the macro context. We will not test breathing, because breathing is absolutely normal for macro lenses that will include the old ARRI or the IBE Raptor, Zeiss CP2 or any other macro lens we have ever worked with, Cine lenses or photo lenses. It is probably impossible to compensate breathing in the optical design when larger magnification and short close focus is required. Generally, one has to be aware of this effect during productions and avoid long pulls from close focus to infinity. Disclaimer: Laowa gave us the sword Cinemacros free of charge and before the official release, therefore this episode is marked as a paid promotion. Still, we strive to create something interesting and educational so you can build your own opinion on the sword. If you are interested in our verdict, you will find it at the end of this episode. We are very happy that Laowa let us create something way beyond a normal test. That is more fun for us and for you. I think they deserve some love for that. We are going to start with the Laowa Sword 180mm that sports a 1.5x magnification. As a telemacro having an 80mm front diameter, the lens is also a bit slower than the other sword at t4.6. Focus throw is 270 degrees. This is a perfect focal length if distance is required, like when shooting explosions or flames or easily scared animals. The distance also makes it easier to light your subject without the camera and lens casting shadows. Distance will give a lot of perspective compression, so our tape machine looks quite flat on 180mm. And this is what 1.5x magnification means at 14.5 cm minimum working distance. The next sword we are going to swallow is the 100mm that opens to T2.9. Focus throw is 220 degrees. Magnification is slightly larger with 2x, and when we drive the lens into the minimum working distance of 8 cm, you can see that this results in a much larger subject compared to the 180mm. The next sword you can put your enemies to is the 60mm that opens to T2.9, focus throw is 160mm. Magnification is also 2x. The next double-edged sword is the 35mm that also opens to T2.9. Focus throw is 270 degrees. Magnification is 1x. The next sword you can live and die by is the 25mm that also opens to T2.9. Focus throw is 100 degrees and the magnification is 1x. With this short working distance, the diameter of the lens becomes very important, and the 80mm diameter of the 25mm makes it more versatile than larger cinemacros. The last sword you can fall into is the 50mm that opens to T4.1. Focus throw is only 84 degrees. Magnification is 1x. The minimum focus distance is 0.0 centimeters. Astounding! The extreme field of view and working distance allows for really special and interesting shots. If you think you can also use the 60mm ARRI for this, keep in mind that that lens is designed for Super 35 and has much less field of view. With all that Laowa Sword macro glory at our disposal, what will we do with it? We wanted to do something cinematic instead of the common use for product videography and bug hunting. I remembered how much I was captivated by the intro of David Fincher's Mindhunter. It is one of those sequences that really stands out and has this iconic quality David Fincher is so good at creating. Using macro shots for movie intros has quite a tradition. One of the earlier examples for a macro-based title sequence is the intro of 1962's To Kill a Mockingbird. Stephen Frankfurt's masterful composition and macro photography creates a wonderfully effective pathway into a child's mind and into the mood of the movie. To Kill a Mockingbird was probably an inspiration for Kylie Cooper when he developed ideas for the title sequence of David Fincher's Seven. Coming from tabletop work, Cooper created a short story of fragments and vignettes, giving the audience an intimate look into the mind of a serial killer. Obsessive, but still purpose-driven. The chaotic graphic design and the track of the Nine Inch Nails' Trent Reznor underline the movie's themes of hopelessness and apathy. The cinematography of this sequence uses only close-ups. This denies us to get a bigger picture and to investigate or understand the context of what is happening, foreshadowing the plot of the movie. The Mindhunter title sequence evolves the technique further. It is the flip side of the Seven intro. Again, we are in the story surrounding serial murderers. Again, in a series of close-ups. But instead of obsession and chaos, we get a sterile perspective of an analyst. The minimalistic and controlled sequences of the tape recorder violently cuts into close-ups with a subliminal effect. This cinematography perfectly embodies the series storyline of curiosity and the thin red line that separates the investigators from the horrors of abnormal human behavior. Our goal was to recreate the Mindhunter sequence as far as that was possible. To be authentic, we organized the same open reel recorder, microphone, and table stand that were used in the original. Shout out to YouTuber Techmoan, who did a video on the props of Mindhunter. He figured out the exact models, which is not that trivial as the microphone is not from Sony, and the mic stand is not fitting it either. The Sony TC510-2 was altered for Mindhunter by removing the Sony logo. We will have to leave the logo in. You also see a different model number. This is the number for the Japanese version. Allegedly, Fincher's team couldn't find a mint Sony TC510-2. We didn't get the TDK tape lead that you see in these sequences. It seems like it never existed and was created just for Mindhunter. The rest is pretty much exactly what you see in the original. As just recreating the sequence is kind of boring, we decided to leave out the murder victim cutaways and replace those with bodyscapes of a different kind, featuring an old friend of mine. This skull is with me for 35 years, and I got it from my grandfather, who was an artist, using it to draw anatomic studies. Originally from a closed-down ossuary, it is at least 250 years old and quite small. While we call her Marie in the family, it is probably from an adult male. Centuries of decays have taken a toll, but especially that is what makes Marie so interesting to study. We want to give her a poetic dimension and create kind of a vanitas art symbolizing transience of life and certainty of death. Before we are going behind the scenes and explain how we did the different shots of the skull and the open reel, let's get in the mood and watch the result. The used sword focal length and stop is in the lower right corner. We call this one Macrohunter.
Through the mountains, whispers of night, beyond the vast sea, there may I lie. Each day and night, thy quest is done. No hope is left behind. Unto the darkness, thus tears are gone. I searched for sunlight and found no more. My hands took the torch once I lived, now I
If you want to have a version without the clutter and lens info around it, there's a standalone version. Link is in the description and in the corner. We also have a short with a behind-the-scenes shot under the corresponding scene. Link is also in the description. It is always a bit sad when this level of production quality is only enjoyed by the small community of professionals that we obviously cater for, and will do so in the future. But if you can help to expand that a little, we would be very grateful. So, if you think that we deserve it, please leave us a like. That always helps with the algorithm. And if you are extra nice, you can share this episode or the standalone version of Macrohunter with your community of people that are interested in film. Thank you so much. We will consider this as mitigating circumstances. Now, let's give you some insights on how we pulled off the shots you just saw. As usual, the most important ingredient for recreating the cinematography you enjoy is the lighting and the right props. Fincher definitely chose the open rear recorder for aesthetic reasons too, and the Sony has nice reflective chrome surfaces. We are going to use our trusted Kinefinity Marvel F Mark II. It will help with the sterile look to have lots of resolution and detail in the shots. Just like when filming beauty shots of cars and watches, a large diffused light source from above will make the metallic surfaces look great. The source should be much larger than the subject itself, and you can see that source in some of the takes. We're going to use an RE Sky panel with a frame and diffusion, and we can move and angle the whole setup quickly to get exactly what we need from shot to shot. We have another LED panel from the right side of the table, as some shots also have more or less side lights. We chose to give the light a turquoise tint that will help to match the original in the grade a bit. Putting the camera on a dolly is not really necessary, but it does speed up the process, and when you have one standing in the studio, use it. If you think studio, sky panel, dolly, you can't do without it, you definitely can with simple cheap gear. The microphone and the stand didn't arrive in time for the main shooting, so I shot that in my living room with simple pop-up reflector and basic gear. It will just take you longer. With a basic setup in place, we can go shot by shot through the original. With all the Laowa Sword in the backhand, we were sure that we could easily match all perspectives. We ended up using the 60mm and the 100mm for those shots, as that matched what we saw in the original. Not that the original used 60 and 100mm. We used full frame and Fincher used a red helium with Super 35, but matching distance and framing. Talking about matching, we didn't match the originals to perfection. That would have slowed the process down a lot. Ballpark has to be good enough. Lighting-wise, it's all really simple. We moved the top light according to our needs back and forth and turned the side light in and out of the frame. Sometimes the side light is turned to the background, lighting it up a bit. We went through all the open reel shots in about 2 hours of shooting, leaving time for a bit of experimenting with the lighting. Eric Messerschmidt did a lot more with moving the lights in the original, but it's so subtle that we decided to not do that for the most part and put our time elsewhere. You might have already noticed that we also used 2 of the test shots of the motion control robot in here, but graded to match. And I have to say, there's no way you could have pulled these off without advanced motion control. Like we mentioned before, the microphone shots were done in my living room, simply putting gray paper on a dining table and hanging a pop-up diffusion over the microphone. Especially the second shot is interesting because it has a great effect using a simple technique. It basically inverts the lighting from a darker microphone in front of a brighter backdrop to a brighter microphone in front of a darker backdrop. And you simply use one light that you turn from pointing towards the background down to the microphone. To be or not to be? We wanted Marie to be unidentifiable as a skull in the beginning of Macrohunter. Just like in the original, where the murder victims hide in the short time, we hide the skull too, but in scale. We wanted it to look much larger, but still hint at what it might be. Our first shot is supposed to resemble a flight over a canyon, maybe even a tortured surface of an alien planet. Then we enter a cave, from where we see the sun pass through a crevice, explore strange rock formations and stalactites, right up to a big reveal shot. If you think that the setup for the microphone was simple, the skull shots are even simpler. A table, a black muslin backdrop, and flags will do as a setup. We used our Alexa XT-M for those shots simply because the Marvel was on the robot during the time we shot these takes. But honestly, any camera that fit the sword could have done this. To create the moving shadows, we mounted a hardpoint source light on a manual slider. Flags next to the light let us make the skull appear and disappear in the shadows. We also put the camera on a mini slider. This one also doubles as a macro slider, so it's very precise in very short slides, just what we need here. In some of the shots we drive past, in, out or over Marie. The sun through the crevice shot was actually done from inside the skull using the original Laowa probe lens. The protube is simply too big to fit through the foramen magnum. Now we move the light on the slider past the coronal suture. And presto. As you see, we didn't even need to dim down the studio. Relatively high f numbers and shooting with 75 frames per second reduced the illumination enough to make the surroundings look pitch black. Again, there's that one shot you couldn't have pulled off without motion control, and that is when we emerge from the inside of the skull through the open eye socket and reveal Marie in all her glory. Spike did that job handsomely. Unfortunately, I have no behind-the-scenes shot from the move itself, but we used the 35mm sword for that one. Now we put all the shots together with some striking music and some titling resembling the originals. For the logo sequence we used After Effects, and the water surface is a stock asset from Artlist. The close-up shot of the open reel that slides to the frame is simply this wider shot repositioned in Resolve. And done. After having used the sword for this project and beyond that in a high-end production that we can't show you here, it is time to give you our verdict. Overall, we really like the sword and the results they give us. They look very clean, and there's nothing in the optical department one could really complain about. They look great wide open and closed down. They do flare quite easily in environments with strong lights like you have in product photography, so using a matte box can help, if that is possible for the given shot. Mechanically, it's a bit odd that the lenses differ so widely with their focus throws, ranging from 270 degrees for the 35mm and the 180mm to only 84 degrees on the 50mm. The different and short throws make the integration into motion control systems a bit cumbersome. The markings on the lenses only show magnification in the close focus area, not actual distance. We would have preferred to have accurate focus distance markings right up to close focus. To be clear, this is just a matter of convenience in a narrow field of views. It might have benefits in other applications, and making the swords as versatile as possible might have been the intention here. At only $1,499, the price is fantastic for any Cine lens, not to talk about macro Cine lenses. The price of $7,999 for the whole set makes the sword a no-brainer for professionals in need for Cine macros. There is simply nothing even close in terms of value and range on the market right now. The sword makes macro cinematography so much more affordable and therefore more accessible for a wider audience. Nicely done, Laowa. After shaking up the probe lens market, you will probably do it again for Cine macros. And talking about probe lenses, it is nice that we now have a wide range of normal macros that fit the look of the protubes perfectly. Before we let you out on bail, there's one more thing. Laowa didn't only send us the sword, but also the Aurogon. The Aurogon are not macro but micro lenses, reaching from 10x to 50x magnification. The Aurogon are more of a lens system than a set, with a front unit that can be attached to different length tubes that contain lens elements themselves. The Aurogon cover full frame, but they can't reach infinity and have to be used at their fixed working distance of 20mm. You can't focus them either. You move the camera or preferably the subject into focus, which can be quite hard at high magnifications over 10x. To give you an idea of what that means, a macro lens is great if you want to film an ant. A 10x magnification micro lens is great if you want to film the eye of an ant. And 50x is great if you want to film the disease that the ant has in its eye. As this might still be a bit cryptic, let's give you a quick example with a scale you are familiar with, the retina display of an iPhone.
Come closer.
Retina means that you can't see pixels with your bare eyes, as they are smaller than what your eyes can resolve. This is what we see at the 2x magnification of the 100mm sword. Now the pixels are twice as large as they are in reality from a distance of 80mm to the front element. And you can clearly see a pattern if you watch this on a large display. Let's go much closer to 10x magnification using the widest Aurogon. Individual pixels and their shape are now clearly visible. The 20x Aurogon doubles that with ease. And here you realize that the retina display is very much built to fit human vision, emphasizing on green. With the 35x we start to focus on individual pixels. With 50x we only see a few pixels in the frame, and we are still in a 6K image without crop, so with the 4x crop to HD you arrive at a single pixel. That is 200x magnification. The Aurogon opened amazing possibilities, especially for science and manufacturing. In a narrative context, probably nothing you wouldn't rather do with CGI, but you never know when you're struck by a special idea. Unfortunately, you can't break the law of optics with the Aurogons, and that means that the images suffer from diffraction, and the depth of field is basically non-existent. This is why all those amazing images of bugs are done with focus stacking, using hundreds of images. Exactly what our macro slider is for. This is obviously something you can't do filming a moving object, or can you? Challenge accepted, but this will be something for another time and episode. If you have a smashing idea, let us know in the comments. We would like to thank our partners and collaborators that made this episode possible. Thank you to the Marmalade and their awesome crew for collaborating with us one more time. It is priceless to have access to professional studios and the Spike motion control system. All of that just because of your shared passion and curiosity for filmmaking. We would like to thank the Marmalade's crew that helped with the setup, filming and shooting behind the scenes material for this episode. That is Christopher Klemme, Moritz Walliser, Lisa, and Ole Jansen. Special thanks go out to Christopher as he organized our shooting and helped so much with his know-how. He was also the operator of Spike for this project. And of course we would like to thank Laowa for letting us test the sword macros. It is really awesome that they gave us the liberty to do this our way, by creating something that is hopefully interesting, educational and inspiring to you. Isn't that just so much better than lens charts? If you have an interesting product or service for advanced filmmaking and you want to present it in our unique way to an awesome audience of professional filmmakers, let's talk. Our email address is in the description. Episodes like this are impossible to create without our channel members, and we are very grateful for all the support. Thank you so much for your kindness, your inspiration and your generosity. The Division salutes you. This episode is, like all the others, for you. Please don't forget to like and share. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so, because we have a lot of awesome content coming your way. Until next time, my name is Nicholas, signing out with nerdlicious wishes. Shoot something amazing.